We will straight dive into the theme that we have today, which is largely around discussing the global shocks and how the agriculture sector has responded to some of these shocks. And in that process, what have we learned that we can take to the policy world, that we can take to the private sector, the investment community, that can help us navigate future shocks. So here with us, we have 4 industry experts, leaders, who have created an impact in their respective fields, and who have also demonstrated to the world how to overcome shocks and what can be learned from those important events. Now, I think there are 3 key questions that we will try to answer, and again, this is a very a big constraint on time, so we will keep it quite short. I request the panelists to also respect your fellow panelists' time so that we can have further networking conversations after this. But I think 3 prominent questions that come to the fore are largely around what did the shocks teach us in terms as industry experts from your own. Has the disruptive event share with the community out here and take it forward from here. So I'll pause there. And amongst the panelists, we have 2 of the major input, I would say some of the largest, the global leaders when it comes to input industry, Corteva, UPL, and then you also have Sumeet and Dr. Rajashekar, who also represent a different commodity space that would look at organic agriculture and also the commodity markets. So amongst all these crops that we are covering, we have some of the major crops that are vulnerable to climate change, that are also subject to market shocks very often. So it would be very interesting to listen to some of these insights that they would share with us. Let me also join them, and then we can have an informal chat here. That's the only thing that I think we can manage in 30 minutes. So, Mr. Rajashekar, I would begin with you in sharing with the community out here, as this is a niche market that you're trying to command in terms of the organic agriculture, in terms of the niche community market that we are trying to command here. But this also is subject to a lot of shocks that are primarily in the form of climate uncertainties, then the lack of systems that would increase transparency.
So we are a farm to fork company. So we work with about 35,000 farmers on 2 lakh acres across the country. And our business is roughly about 50% exports, branded exports. We don't do any commodities. And 50-led model, because we have to buy from our farmers and then stock it around the year. So that kind of helped us tied about 2 months' time. But for us also the challenge was we cannot buy anything from anywhere. We have to buy only from our certified, registered farmers. And then primarily I think for us it's a lot of face-to-face activities, whether it is in sourcing, supply chain, or in operations, or in sales. So I think everything got disrupted for us. So I think our primary focus was on well-being of our people. Because if people fall sick, or if people are not motivated or scared, then obviously there's nothing much we can do. And for us, the operations are quite decentralized. We operate in about 12 states in terms of sourcing. We sell in across the country. Then we export about 40 countries. So the whole challenge was how do we take care of well-being of our people. So obviously immediately we did medical COVID insurance for them. Then we organized online sessions with doctors. Then we had e-consulting, and then when the vaccination became available, there was a huge drive to make sure people got vaccinated. Having said that, still I think, but I think that year our business actually grew, primarily because people responded very well and they were able to tackle local challenges in spite of a lot of issues. But I think our overseas business, particularly US, which is perhaps a significant share of our overseas business, there I think one realization was perhaps if we had some local supplies available, it would have been better. Obviously, given the kind of commodities, the kind of products we deal, it's not very easy. But that's something always at the back of the mind, and then we are trying to see what we can do. So today about 5-10% we source locally and pack locally. So that's one. And then second thing which became very apparent was in terms of the digitization. Obviously we have a core ERP which takes care of basic processes. But I think COVID was such a big disruptor, that was a big issue. So today I think we have embarked on a major digitization or digital transformation drive, so that when next event occurs, then I think the transition is a little more smoother. So I would say these are two things.
Thanks, Nageshaji. Ashish, coming to you, a lot of space in terms of the input market globally. And I think a different set of challenges that came to you was in the form of how the fertilizer market was also kind of impacted globally. Now, I think UPL, when you're looking at the different crop commodities, comes with different sets of value-added services, both in terms of climate change, carbon markets, you have the soil additives, you have value-added services in terms of predicting the unpredictable for farmers. So where do you see these disruptions leading you to in the market? What any new emerging areas that you actually stumbled upon as part of these opportunities that came along with disruptions?
Yeah, quickly to tell, UPL is a crop protection company. We have crop protection, biosolutions, mechanization operations, financial inclusion solutions, and we operate across 126 countries across the world. India, of course, also is a huge market for us. I think we have seen huge disruptions in last, I think all the black swan movements are happening here. I think in terms of whether it's a COVID disruption, and then we had the Russia war, and it sent the whole food supply chains into all kind of issues. The other thing which is in your face now, literally a black swan, which you cannot now avoid, is the climate change. I think it's not far away, it is already here. I think, the way we are seeing. And of course, the fourth thing which is happening, of course, is more number of people, more food, quality food, and the new angle which is coming, you would have all heard about that containers are being sent back from Europe and all, because people want traceability. They want to know exactly what is going in the fields. So a lot of macro factors are happening, and so the trends are there. Like for every black swan event, you need to see the trends early. You need to sort of prepare for them, and prepare the steps you're going to take. The communication is also the key, right? Because otherwise you end up in a disaster, right? So, but at the same time, it brings amazing opportunities. The adoption curve, we all know with COVID, adoption curve went up big time for digital. To capture so many small fragmented farmers in India, the only way to sort of reach out to everybody is through digital. So I think for us, COVID got us a super fast adoption for our two digital initiatives, where we are connected to the farmers so 3 million farmers we were able to get in 8 months. So, of course, you also, all these black swan events gives you an amazing opportunity for adoption, and also the learning curves reduce. With the climate change piece, we are seeing the adoption in terms of the whole biosolution range. Our biosolution, the adoption which we were trying for a few years now, people themselves are asking us that what do you have as a drought mitigation technology? What do you have as a bio insecticide? If I have to export something to US, do you have something which we can spray in the last 2 weeks so that the product is not a chemical product? So product after product and crisis after crisis is also opening up a lot of opportunities. We are also seeing that because of the labor shortage, mechanization is going to be huge. I think our mechanization endeavor in last few years, the kind of adoption we've seen, and of course the kind of investment that we've done into it is also big. Financial inclusion, once again with this climate change risk, and we know that floods and droughts are happening at the same time in India now. In one part of the country it's flood, in the other part it's a drought. So, so who protects the farmer against all this? Farm is like a small factory. And so what we've, something we were trying for some time, but we're seeing adoption now, is the insurance piece or the farmer credit piece. I think insurance was, even if we were giving insurances for free 3 to 4 years back, nobody was touching. But now I think this year in Beat, farmer ourselves came to us and they said last year we have, we have issues in, with the heat in March. Do you have a product for insurance? right? People have come to us in Telangana and they said that, we've had very uneven rain. Do you have a product for that? So the whole financial inclusion piece also have sort of gone up. So I think all these events, the unpredictable events, now I think we have to accept that's the only way to sort of override a black swan event, is that you have to accept that it's already there and then plan for it. And of course, it opens up a lot of new white spaces for you. It opens up a lot of blue oceans for you. And it is really helping us. We had started a goal for sustainable farming 3 years back, and we were toiling with it for last 3 to 4 years. Now, all of a sudden, for the work that we've done for the last 3, 4 years, we are seeing a lot of adoption for that. Now people are coming and they're asking that, do you have a solution for that? So I think it's a problem, but at the same time, it also opens up so many doors, which otherwise would have taken a long time.
Thank you, Ashish. I think there's some convergence happening here, because if you see what Rajashekar ji spoke about in terms of the need for improving traceability, and is increasingly getting aware of digitalization. So digitalization becomes a common linchpin for multiple commodities when you're actually taking it forward. And then the aspect around financial inclusion, the need for risk insurance products. You see risk, but you don't have products that were very popular till now. And then the disruption. Sumeet, I think that takes us to your domain. You are a company with 170 years of experience in commodity trading. And some of the crops that you manage, including sugarcane, including cotton, including maybe soybean, these are all vulnerable to climate change, and these are all crops that come from the dryland, rain-fed areas of India.
Thanks, Ajith. And firstly, a warm welcome to everyone, and thanks to the state government of Telangana for organizing this wonderful event. It's a first of its kind initiative, and I think something that companies and other states can learn from. So you rightly mentioned about climate change being a big risk to our generations going forward. And we should not have a short-term vision or short-term solution for that. If you look about 20, 30 years from now, look to 2050 and beyond, we'll have to feed a population of close to 9 billion people. We'll need about 50% more food production across the world, with 15%, probably 15% less water resources available or fresh water available for agriculture. And there are risks that our yields can go down across many parts of the world with the increasing climate change that Ashish also mentioned about having rains in March or droughts in the later part of the year, having unseasonal rains throughout the year, too much rains in too little of a time that impacts our production facilities across for different crops. And we tread such a narrow line that we don't need too much, we don't need too little. We need just the optimum amount of rainfall and sunshine. So a lot of it will have to come through technology, whether it's pest-resistant seeds that are able to fight the future diseases across commodities that are present. We need seeds and we need inputs that are able to fight these climatic changes of the earth becoming warmer and warmer as we move ahead in time. And a lot of it is only going to come through technology. And I think there is a way that companies like us can partner with companies like UPL and Corteva in bringing this change on the ground. We both work directly with farmers, and there is no reason where a perfect public-private partnership cannot take place, where companies like the input providers, the buyers or the traders such as us, and the government can participate and educate the farmers, train the farmers to bring about this change. And media reports about pink bollworm being a persistent problem in the cotton crop for the last few years in India, and we're not able to find a solution towards it, either through seed or through application. So in our small way, we decided to intervene last year in only educating and training the farmers of how they can control it once it has initiated. So at that point, it was okay, if the pink bollworm is there, these are the steps you need to do to control it. And we partnered with state and village level government organizations and with input providers to conduct these training workshops across India, across 11 different districts, trained about 15,000 farmers, distributed about 50,000 pheromone traps, which largely help the farmers. And then, our community is so strong that it spreads through word of mouth. So if you think about, okay, there are 10 million farmers, there's no way I can achieve this. Every company will think the same way. But all you have to do is do it step by step. So you train 20,000 farmers in the first year, and word of mouth will spread to 200,000 or 300,000 farmers in that same year. Louis Dreyfus as an organization is very, very committed towards sustainability. And some of the measures that we are implementing are a drive towards zero deforestation and ensuring that our supply chains of palm and soybean come from zero deforested areas. We are introducing regenerative agricultural practices in trainings and supporting farmers to implement better practices that can reduce their input requirements of water and other fertilizers and still able to get the same yields as they were getting earlier with a better price in return.
Ruchira at Corteva. Now, from I think the Acre Next program of Corteva, which talks about sustainability at the forefront, you have a system where you train women farmers as service providers. You try implementing what you call as a direct seeded rice, which reduces the water consumption in rice, and prepare them for shocks like climate change. So there is a lot in common in terms of building the social capital that would then help us mitigate some of the risk and then also address the challenges going forward. So how does Corteva look at shocks globally? And is Acre Next a solution that you think that you can recommend to the community as a practice that can be scaled up?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, I'm a bad throat. Actually, it was half bad. And during the lunch, I ate that Gorugupal pickle. So I have internal crisis now. Before I speak on that, a little bit of what Corteva does. It's a US-based agriculture company, basically a legacy of Dow DuPont. We are working with around 10 million farmers in India, around 150 million hectares of land. So Corteva has around 2 centuries of scientific achievement and agronomic expertise of working with the farmers, and we are basically into seeds and agrochemicals. So while I say seeds, we are basically into 4 crops, that is maize, millet, mustard, and rice. In CP, we have around more than 40 formulations and even more than 20 crops. So that's the holistic ecosystem of Corteva. And before we move to the Acre Next, talking about your black swans, I would say I will not speak much because the earlier speakers have already spoken about the COVID and Russia-Ukraine war. I believe the permanent black swans which are still ahead with us are there. For example, if I talk about, it's expected that this year we may have El Nino. So since 1951, we have around 15 El Ninos, and out of them, 9 converted to drought. The last one we had was in 2018. And if this year also we expect, and the experts says, if we have a 1% reduction in rainfall, we can have a 0.35% impact on the agricultural performance, right? So these are like the black swans. It's like, if we say crisis, it's like annual birthday of crisis we maintain. Every year we think in the April whether we'll have monsoons or not. And the time is to think, to give few solutions to the farmers and put up the contingency plans for these type of black swans, for which we have to think every year. In fact, all the 4 crops that we work, one or the other challenges are there. We just heard about maize in the last session. So in the maize, 2018, there was an attack of fall armyworm, which can create a 30 to 40% loss. That in the maize, we are at around 3 metric ton per hectare. The speaker said the benchmark is around 10 metric ton per hectare. The farmers are not able to get the good price for the maize because they are not drying it. So these are crop-specific, still I would say, swans for which we have still not found a solution and which need to be still looked at. You call it crisis or you call it national priorities also. For example, mustard. We have a huge import burden for the edible oils that we bring in. We still have to catch up with the productivity of the mustard. Even if we do that, what I think from the farmer-centric point of view, as an agri-input company, we provide good hybrids to the farmers. Their productivity raises, for example. Then are the farmers getting the incentive that they should have got for the produce which is actually giving high oil? It's not policy recommendations, for example. Even if an agri-input supplier will help farmers, we should have a mustard oil testing, the oil testing laboratories at the Mandi lab. So these are the type of solutions I think which are required, not only crop specific, but also as you talked about the DSR project of Corteva, wherein we are working with the farmers. DSR, I believe, is a very good concept. It's working, but still we need to have, the crisis is on the behavioral challenges that has to be still coped up from the farmer's end. So these type of projects are very, very good, and from the sustainable angle, they should be carried on. But there is a thing, the panelists said, technology, financial inclusion, supremacy. I would add one more point to it, that the last mile delivery to the farmers is something which should not be lost. It should happen in an integrated manner. For example, take the case of mustard itself. If an input supplier and a buyer, we all come together and we are able to give a better price to the farmers, that I think is a sustainable solution. Likewise, the DSR that I'm saying, which is actually helping the farmers to reduce the water by around 30%.
Thank you, Ruchira. I think let's take a reverse sequence from there. So now that we have looked at the different responses that you had, quickly, if you were to address the Agriculture Principal Secretary sitting here amongst the audience, what would be your top requirement for you to address the shocks effectively, government being the largest stakeholder in the system? So the Principal Secretary is just before you. You could ask what you would want in the next 5 years to make a perfect system that can help you meet the shocks.
Yeah, actually are required by the farmers at the ground level. For those projects, you should, try to help out the companies and particularly the MNCs who are trying to invest in the country in terms of, we would like to see a clear roadmap that this is what the policy support would come and we can invest on this in the coming few years on it. So a very, very accurate and right policy roadmap would be very, very good for us. Take for example, if the farmer at the ground level is facing a problem of weedicides in the rice. So the problem statement is there, but as a company, if we have a regulatory mechanism wherein we can bring in those molecules who can actually help farmers erode the problem of weedicides in the rice at the ground level, that will be a really big help, because the companies are putting in money on R&D, and if there is a roadmap in terms of fast-track approval for the molecules which can sort out the farmer's problem at the ground level, that would be really, really helpful.
Sure. Thank you. So that was Ruchira's 2-minute pitch. Now coming to Sumeet, you have the secretary before you.
In future, and we have to live around it right from the early 1900s, call it the world wars, and more recently we had, before the COVID pandemic hit, we had the US-China trade war disruption that disrupted agricultural supply chains across the world. It put the agricultural world in a difficult situation, and then COVID, which hit post-COVID, it hit supply chains across the world in terms of movement of goods, which became extremely expensive and difficult. From a policy standpoint, I would echo Ruchira's words. We should have policies that are more sustainable and long-term, with a long-term vision. And the short-term gaps are important to fix, because as a country with 1.4 billion people, it's important for us to ensure that we have sufficient food available with our population. And the government the country is grappling with two situations. One, it needs to ensure that the farmers are given a fair and remunerative price for their produce, and we have the minimum support price programs, and we have the various farmer support programs. But at the same time, you want to ensure that inflation stays at a bare minimum, and that impacts the GDP. So, these are two very, very contrarian things to manage, and I think the government is doing whatever it can do at its best to manage both these scenarios. From a longer term point of view, I think there should be encouragement towards R&D, encouragement towards better seed and better technology in terms of inputs, because the arable land is not going up. We are going to have the same amount of land now and in future. In fact, it's only going to go down with more urbanization, and we need to produce more. I'm an optimist, and I feel that India today, where it stands in terms of our yields of various commodities, it's at 30 to 50% range versus world averages. So we have a long way to go up. We don't have to go down. But we will only go up if there is a long-term vision by the governments of the center and the state, and then implementation, execution of those visions and policy documents at the ground level. So those are the things I would request and encourage the government to take forward.
Thank you, Sumeet. Ashish, you are a master at it.
Yeah,
Two
no. I'll tell you exactly what I told the secretary. In fact, there are a lot of solutions available today. I think we have Corteva here, LDC here, UPL here, SERS company. There are so many entrepreneurs who are sitting in the audience. So a lot of solutions are available for which are climate smart solutions. There are a lot of solutions which are available for on the output side, processing side, the farmer connect piece. The whole point which I told him is that some of these forums need to be happening more rigorously and not once in a year kind of an event. I think if it has to be done, it has to be done on a monthly basis. I think there's so much of solutions available, but if people are meeting regularly, then I think it'll be easier for you to connect dots. Otherwise, everybody will keep on reinventing the whole wheel, and there are so many things which I can assure you there are. Out of the 700 odd agtech companies, 500 are doing literally trying to do the same thing, right? Same is the case with some of the other industries also, and maybe government also is trying to do the same thing. So I think more frequent forums, rigorous forums, and because this is a great event. Like Sumeet told, this is a great event that the Telangana government has done, but needs to be followed up.
Rajashekar ji, last things. Best things comes last. So I think you have the floor.
Yeah, I think today the biggest challenge, because I'm a farmer and I also work with 40,000 farmers very intensively, right from sowing to harvest. The biggest challenge is climate change, and because of which extreme weather events, whether it is too much rain, too less rain, or the spatial distribution, temporal distribution. These are huge challenges, and I as a farmer experience this on a day-to-day basis. So I guess the challenge for the governments is to go back to basics, not so sexy things. One is focus on soil, because if your soil is better, it can handle drought or excess rain much better. So that is very fundamental, and there are no easy solutions. This takes many years of effort to make the soil much better, etc. Then the second thing is, because obviously this climate change, these events, one is the risk is production risk, availability of enough food and other crops. Second is income or livelihood risk for farmers. So one is focus on the soil, because what we have found experientially doing 20 years of organic farming is the production risk is much, much lower. The fluctuations are much, much lower, primarily because the soil condition is much better. So that's a lesson. Even if farmers don't practice 100% organic, just focusing on the soil is one. Second is we have to encourage flexible production systems. So today I think a lot of times people cultivate paddy because it's not that they want to cultivate paddy, because one is there is a, let's say, price security there. Then second is there are a lot of ecosystem has fallen in place, right from, let's say, sowing to harvesting in terms of machinery and other things. So we need to figure out and have solutions so that the farmer is free to grow any crop. Because in a situation where there's going to be a drought, millets make sense. But for that, there has to be price security. Similarly, in terms of harvest, etc., if it is going to be too much manual, then the farmer will not be able to mobilize labor. So that's the second thing which the government has to work on, government and even individually as companies we have to work on. And the third thing is, sorry, I think, yeah. So of course, crop insurance, other things definitely help in keeping the production system flexible. I guess, and then the third thing is last 40 years, we have focused on breeding. The whole breeding effort has been focused on responding to maximal inputs. And from a farmer perspective, 80% of the farms are less than 5 acres. And for them, daily livelihood is a challenge. And this focus is not going to help. So we have to breed varieties which come up, give reasonable yields. May not be the maximal yield, but optimal yield at lower levels of, let's say, inputs. And then second is which are stress tolerant. I would say this should be the 3 focus areas for any government to mitigate climate change. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster, and the burden on the government would be much, much higher if we don't address this.
Thank you. I think our panelists did a great job in terms of trying to encapsulate an amazing topic here. Moving to the other one.
Great. Okay, we'd have that.
And the UPL and Corteva, of course, they are coming up with sustainable solutions, but large part of their business is, through chemistries which are not organic in nature for sure. So between the two, I'd like to understand we are feeding the world by protecting the crop better.
Yes, organic farming is a good solution, but 100% pure organic farming for every farmer may not be a practicable thing. But let's say incorporating organic farming practices, I would say even 50 to 60% in conventional farming would definitely, one is reduce the chemical burden on the planet and people, and second also reduce the, let's say, the expense and the financial risk of the farmers. So I guess
fully in the world, right? So I think it's a huge business for us. But we, all the stand that we have is that it has to be a mix of both the things, because otherwise doing commercial farming is impossible. We've seen what happened in Sri Lanka, we've seen what's happening in Sikkim. So you cannot become China, which China was in the early 2000s, where they went totally chemical. And you also cannot be totally 100% biosolution or organic. So I think the answer is somewhere in between. Otherwise, commercial farming and feeding 8 billion people would be very, very difficult. So I think that's, so sustainable, everything in life, moderation is always good, is what I feel.
Last 2 speakers, there is no binary answer to that, yes or no. But one common thread which is running is everyone is looking towards the sustainable solutions. As Corteva also, we have a mission that each and every product that will be released till 2025 will be like meeting the criteria of sustainable innovation. So there are in pipeline also many green chemistry products which are being thought for the India and already in the R&D stage. If they don't meet the criteria, they are not moving to the stage 2. And Corteva has recently bought Strogler and Embargos, so we are moving towards the biologicals also. So you can say that it's a mixed strategy. Even the companies like UPL, Corteva, they are moving towards the sustainable solutions like green chemistry products. So I think it will be a very good blend of the conventional and the modern together, which can take the country forward.
Retailer plays a role here because we know that 95% or more than 95% of the retailers take the product from, farmers take from the product from retailer. UPL also has nurture retail as its a business. So how do you think the changes in this supply chain should be there to actually prepare for the further next 20-30 years, because it's very much traditional as a whole. Yeah.
Protection, they're sitting together in the evening. I think that kind of a bond, and all these retailers are like mom and pop stores. They're not like big corporates as you would have it in the US and all. And with such a big fragmented population of farmers that we have, half acre, 1 acre. If you go to the east, it's 1/4 of an acre kind of a farmer. So I think retailer will play a very, very important role in not just distribution of the product, but also dissemination of the technology, and adoption of the technology. So I think at all points of time, in the near future also, consolidation will happen. That's part of every industry. As the land will consolidate, the retailers will also consolidate. But I think they will keep on, being a very, very important part of the entire ecosystem, because nowhere in the world, in any farming ecosystem, people have actually gone and bypassed them. I think the kind of society or the kind of business that we are in, I think they do form the important part of the whole solution.
This quality sustainable value chain, where do you see the role of agri-techs, in connecting the companies to the farmers? Because they seem to be just trying to replace themselves or fit themselves into the ecosystem, but how do you corporates look at them?
So I'll to 20 cooperatives and I'll be covering 2 crore acres. But in India, with the small fragmented farmers, you can only do as much. Even if whatever marketing dollars you're spending, you can only do as much. If you have to reach to millions and millions of farmers or retailers, you have to touch them, digitally, or use different technologies to sort of reach them. So I think that's the reason why we entered into. I think this is a field wide open for all the agri-techs. I know, all kinds of models are being applied, but I think somebody, a lot of good work is also happening. But I think I definitely feel that that's something which is coming in future.
Bought from UPL or Corteva should be applied on what part of the plant, and then if there are issues, how to address those through technology. With the smartphone penetration in India and with the cheap data that we have across the country, there is no reason why an Indian farmer, a smallholder Indian farmer, should be left behind in terms of increasing their productivity through technology. They may not have economies of scale, but with the right vision and the narrow approach towards handling their 1 acre, 2 acre farm, even a small farmer can afford that, and technology is making that available. So that's where I see agri-tech playing a huge role going forward. They are already playing a very good role in doing input and output linkages, but in a way that also replicating some of that distributor and the retail channels that we have, which already exists. So they're making the market more transparent. The traditional ways of business are going to remain, and the new ways of business are also going to, coexist along with it. But the farmer becomes more educated, more learned about the price that they are buying their raw material inputs at, and what are the options available to them, which earlier were not available. So there is a number of levels in which agri-tech is playing a role in shaping the future of agriculture in our country.
Currently, I think we have apps for our all our field people, where I think one is we load all the package of organic package of practices, and they can consult and do it. Every farm for us geotagged, and every season the area under various crops of each farmer is estimated, so that we have an accurate estimate of how much area under various crops and what production we can expect, because we can't go anywhere else and buy. So that's something which is happening. And then we also facilitate, because we believe that if a farmer has got a solution at the right time, they will not be unnecessarily interested in spending money on buying stuff, etc. So timely advice becomes very important. Today I think we do through our field staff app, but the next phase we are working on rolling out a farmer app where we are able to push advisories so that